In the silent digital vaults of a national astronomical database, a verdict was rendered not with a press conference, but with a click. No fanfare, no staged excitement, just a series of unassuming files. FITS data, photometric readings, astrometric positions, slipping into the public domain like routine paperwork. But for the scientists who opened them, it was anything but routine. This was confirmation, a silent, data-driven confirmation of the scenario the astronomical community had dreaded since the day the third interstellar visitor, Comet 3 I/Atlas, was first spotted. China's new observations, captured during the most suspicious 36-hour observational blackout in modern Western astronomy, don't just fill a gap in our knowledge. They tear the existing timeline apart. They reveal an object brightening with unnatural precision, expanding its coma in defiance of known physics, and sculpting a tale that tells a story we are not prepared to hear. The most chilling part? The comet itself didn't change. Our perception of it did, irrevocably. As if 3I/Atlas wasn't merely tumbling toward the sun, but was waiting for that precise window of global inattention, waiting for the moment only one nation would be watching. China's data doesn't introduce a new mystery. It confirms the one we've been desperately trying to deny. The story of 3I/Atlas begins, officially, with a discovery. On July 1st, 2025, the Atlas survey in Chile logged a faint, fast-moving speck against the backdrop of fixed stars. Initial orbital calculations sent a jolt through the world's observatories. This was no native of our solar system. It was the third confirmed interstellar visitor, following Oumuamua and 2I/Borisov, and it was moving at a blistering 209,000 kilometers per hour on an unbounded hyperbolic trajectory, a path that declared it a citizen of the galactic void, just passing through. Immediately, the great eyes of modern astronomy turned to watch. The Hubble Space Telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, the Very Large Telescope in Chile, the Gemini observatories in Hawaii and Chile, all synchronized their schedules to build a continuous, unbroken arc of data. We were poised to understand this messenger from the stars like never before, and then, at the most critical juncture in its journey, the music stopped. As 3I/Atlas approached its perihelion, the point of closest approach to the sun, where solar heating is most intense and a comet's activity reaches its peak, the world's most powerful telescopes, one by one, went offline. It was a blackout orchestrated not by malice, but by schedule, a perfect and perfectly unfortunate storm of pre-planned maintenance. The James Webb Space Telescope entered a crucial gyroscope realignment and mirror calibration phase. Hubble underwent a scheduled instrument swap. The VLT and Gemini North executed coordinated mirror cleaning and instrument upgrades. For 36 hours, a critical window when the comet would be subjected to maximum solar radiation, triggering the violent sublimation of ices that reveals its fundamental composition and structure, the West was blind. It was the exact moment to observe outgassing jets, measure dust-to-gas ratios, map the expansion of the coma, and search for stress fractures on the nucleus. A natural comet has nothing to hide in this inferno. An unnatural one, however, might have everything to reveal. As the sun's glare intensified, 3I/Atlas slipped behind a veil, and the West had voluntarily closed its eyes. But one set of eyes remained wide open. While the great telescopes of the West slept, a network of high-altitude observatories in the remote, thin-air deserts of Tibet and the mountains of Yunnan and Qinghai maintained their silent, unblinking vigil. There were no maintenance cycles, no scheduling conflicts. The Chinese astronomical infrastructure, strategically positioned under some of the darkest and most stable skies on Earth, was perfectly poised to capture what the rest of the world would miss. Every second of that 36-hour blackout was logged with relentless precision. Astrometric positions were pinned down to milli-arc-second accuracy. The comet's brightness was measured through multiple filters, B, V, and R bands, creating a high-fidelity light curve. The morphology of its growing coma and nascent tail was documented in a series of deep, high-resolution exposures, each time-stamped with millisecond accuracy. Their data fed through cooling CCDs and redundant fiber optic links to servers in Beijing and Nanjing. This was not merely observation. It was a sovereign act of strategic data acquisition. And what those files contained was not what the Western models had predicted. When the West telescopes came back online, they saw a comet that had, in a day and a half, seemingly evolved. But China had witnessed the transformation itself. To comprehend the profundity of what China recorded, one must first understand the anatomy of a comet's awakening. The coma, that beautiful, ghostly halo, is a temporary atmosphere of gas and dust, blasted off the nucleus by the sun's heat. It is a chaotic, natural process. But according to the data China has now released, 3I/Atlas did not behave chaotically. It reacted. It responded with a chilling coherence. Prior to the blackout, initial data from JWST and other facilities had already raised eyebrows. The coma was dominated by carbon dioxide, not water ice, a strange signature suggesting a formation history and thermal evolution utterly alien to anything in our own solar system. But it was during the blackout, under the full fury of solar radiation, that the object's true anomaly manifested. China's continuous photometric sequence showed the comet's brightness surging by zero point 0.3 magnitudes in a matter of hours, a spike inconsistent with simple, passive sublimation. More startlingly, the coma itself was seen to elongate not away from the sun, as solar radiation pressure would dictate, but toward it. It was as if a jet of material was firing sunward, a phenomenon that defies our fundamental models of cometary physics. Furthermore, the dust-scattering properties analyzed from China's multi-filter photometry indicated a sudden shift in the size distribution of ejected particles. The coma became enriched with unusually large, carbon-rich grains, a profile that contradicts the expected behavior of a CO2-dominated comet, which typically releases finer, smaller dust. This was not a simple change. It was a compositional switch, as if the object was regulating its own output. When the West observatories resumed operations, their first images showed this new asymmetrical coma. Without China's data, it would have been a baffling snapshot, a puzzle with the central pieces missing. But with China's meticulous log of the blackout hours, the transition was no longer a mystery. It was a documented event. The data showed a clear time sequence: increased solar flux, followed by a brightness surge, followed by a sunward expansion of the coma, followed by a shift in dust composition. This was not the behavior of a lump of ice being warmed. This was the behavior of a system undergoing an activation sequence. The raw technical precision of this data is, in itself, a staggering achievement. Every photon that struck the detectors at those Chinese observatories passed through a rigorous pipeline of correction and validation. The data was processed through advanced atmospheric correction algorithms, cross-referenced with the pin-sharp stellar positions of the Gaia Data Release 3 catalog, and calibrated against standard Landolt photometric sequences to ensure absolute accuracy. The result was a dataset of such pristine quality that it single-handedly reduced the orbital uncertainty of 3I/Atlas by a factor of 5. This wasn't just about having a telescope pointed at the sky. It was about having a seamless, state-of-the-art technological apparatus operating with flawless efficiency while the rest of the world's infrastructure was silent. In that strategic silence, China captured a continuous record of an interstellar object's most intimate interaction with a star, and in doing so, they exposed not just a gap in data, but a flaw in our entire approach to understanding what might be visiting us. The reawakening of Western telescopes brought not clarity, but cognitive dissonance. The models built on the data from before and after the blackout no longer fit. The light curve was broken. The coma's new geometry was an anomaly that couldn't be easily explained. The subtle changes in the object's trajectory, now measurable with the new precise astrometric data, required additional non-gravitational forces to be accounted for, forces that are typically weak and random in natural comets, but here seem pronounced and directed. The silence from major space agencies became a story in itself. There were no hurried press conferences from NASA or the ESA, no detailed explanatory blogs from the science teams. There was only the quiet, frantic work of scientists worldwide downloading the Chinese datasets and running them through their own simulations, only to arrive again and again at the same unsettling conclusion. The updated models for 3I/Atlas consistently strayed outside the bounds of natural cometary behavior. The missing 36 hours had not just created an uncertainty, they had created a wound in our understanding, and the data meant to heal it only revealed a more profound sickness in our assumptions. When China uploaded the blackout period files to the China VO Sky Survey portal, they offered no interpretation. They presented the raw, unvarnished data, the most powerful and unbiased form of evidence in science. This act of pure disclosure sent a shockwave through the global scientific community that no press release ever could. Within half a day, the Minor Planet Center had issued updated ephemerides. Research institutions from Caltech to the Max Planck Institute were running their own photometric reductions on the FITS files. The collective intelligence of world astronomy was now focused on this single, uninterrupted data stream from the East, and the story it told was more compelling than any speculation. The coma sunward elongation, once thought to be an imaging artifact, was confirmed as a real physical phenomenon. The brightness spike was verified. The strange dust properties were replicated in independent analyses. The most literal and startling interpretation of the data began to gain traction, that the comet was exhibiting a form of echo response to solar radiation. It wasn't just warming up. It was interacting, its surface or subsurface structure, reacting to the light in a way that produced a coordinated, almost signal-like output of matter and energy. When the Chinese and Western datasets were finally merged, a new unified and terrifyingly coherent timeline of 3I/Atlas's behavior emerged. We now had a continuous record from discovery to post-perihelion. This complete picture revealed an object that is a bundle of contradictions. A CO2 dominant comet that behaves unlike any other CO2 dominant comet we know. A brightness curve that suggests internal processes beyond simple sublimation. A tail structure that reconfigured itself dramatically during a specific, unobserved window. A nucleus, estimated by some models to be a mere 300 meters across, that seems too small to produce the massive, structured coma we observed without some form of highly efficient, focused jetting. A dust-to-gas ratio that falls far outside the norm for any known body in our solar system. A hyperbolic trajectory that is so precise it feels less like a random ejection and more like a targeted path. This confluence of anomalies points to one inescapable fact. 3I/Atlas is not a passive rock. It is a phenomenon, and China's decisive observations have confirmed the deepest fear, that we are not tracking an inert interstellar vagabond, but an active interstellar agent. China's findings make no grand claims about extraterrestrial intelligence. They do not whisper of alien technology or push a conspiratorial narrative. They simply present the evidence, and the evidence paints a picture of an object that behaved differently when it knew, or rather, when circumstances suggested that only one set of eyes was upon it. It brightened when only one network of telescopes could measure it. It altered the very geometry of its atmosphere when only one hemisphere was watching. It responded to sunlight not with the chaotic fury of melting ice, but with the precise, structured behavior of an activated system. The fear is no longer that 3I/Atlas is a direct threat. The fear is that it is a manifestation of something deliberate, something purposeful, something that operates on a logic we do not yet comprehend. This isn't just an interstellar object, it is an interstellar event, one that seems to possess an unnerving awareness of its observational context. In the final analysis, the most shocking thing is not found in the pixels of an image or the data points of a light curve. It is found in the silence that followed and the data that shattered it. China did not just observe a strange comet. They observed the moment the comet chose to be strange, the moment it revealed a facet of itself that the rest of the world was not meant to see. For months, the official line was one of cautious, conservative science. 3I/Atlas is a comet, a fascinating but natural relic from another star. But natural relics do not react selectively. They do not reconfigure their anatomy during a global blackout. They do not brighten on cue or shift their dust composition as if following a script. China's data has transformed a whispered fear into a central, unavoidable question. The fear was never that it would hit us. The fear was that it was for us, in a way we cannot yet define. A message, a probe, a beacon, or something else entirely that is not merely drifting, but doing. And when it chose to act, the international community was looking the other way, save for one nation that was patiently, meticulously recording every second. As 3I/Atlas now recedes into the outer darkness, on its way back to the interstellar void from whence it came, it leaves behind a legacy of profound disquiet. The seamless curve of data from China is the ultimate testament. When you look at that unbroken line, the behavior is not random noise. It is a coherent signal. It has the hallmarks of a trajectory correction, an activation sequence, a response to a stimulus. Every anomaly the West tried to dismiss as an artifact of incomplete data has been cemented into fact by China's continuous record. We are left with a universe that is not only stranger than we imagine, but stranger than we can imagine, and one that may be paying far closer attention to us than we ever realized. For the first time in history, our understanding of a cosmic event is fractured not by a lack of technology, but by a fracture in access to the truth. One nation holds the key to the missing chapter in this story, and as 3I/Atlas speeds away, it becomes clear that the universe is not waiting for the rest of humanity to catch up. We detected an object, but we may have encountered an intent, and that changes everything. If this revelation has left you questioning the very nature of what entered our solar system, then this is not the end of your inquiry, but the beginning. Subscribe now because the next data release from either China or a compelled Western agency could rewrite the story once again. Turn on notifications so you are the first to know when the next piece of this cosmic puzzle falls into place. And we must ask you, after everything we've seen, do you believe 3I/Atlas was just a comet? Or was it the first confirmed active interstellar system humanity has ever witnessed in motion? Information updated.